Morning, welcome back to the channel. I'm at a friend's woodland bird feeding station, and today that's what I'm going to be doing, taking pictures of woodland birds. Now I thought this was a really good opportunity to talk about how to get really sharp pictures of birds taking off and landing, because it's slightly different to maybe the techniques you would use for general birds in flight, and I've done a video about that, and if I remember I'll put it in the link below. So we're talking about birds taking off and birds landing from very small woodland birds, and we've got all sorts of woodland birds here, blue tits, great tits, long-tailed tits. We've also got great spotted woodpeckers, we've got jays, nuthatches. So there's a whole range of woodland birds, and they are the hardest, particularly the small ones, things like blue tits, great tits and nuthatches, for example. They are so quick. So we'll talk about how to photograph them taking off and possibly landing. And then we've got the slightly bigger birds, such as the great spotted woodpeckers and the jays. They're a little bit easier, but still very difficult. And then you've got the really bigger birds, things like herons, which are a lot easier because they're slower. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to be taking some pictures today as well, because that's why I'm here. But a lot of the pictures featured in this video are examples that I've taken previously, because it's the best way to put this type of tutorial video together. So let's get started. If you look at the first picture here, this is of a jay taking off. And I shot this at 1/2000th of a second, and the shutter speed is really important. And the other thing that's really important is to actually focus on a specific area. So if you look here, we've got the jay taking off from a log, so I'm already pre-focused on that log, and then as the jay takes off, it's already going to be in focus, and as long as it flies in the same direction, so parallel to my lens, it's going to stay in focus. The problem is, if it goes backwards or forwards, then sometimes the autofocus system doesn't keep up, and you'll see an example of that later on in this video. But look, this is a really sharp picture. I took this actually, to tell a lie, I took this at 1/4000th of a second, so it's a really fast shutter speed, and you can see all the motion, all the movement has been frozen in time. Now if you look at this second picture of a jay, this was shot at 1/2000th of a second. The light's not as good, so the ISO is much higher. So the picture doesn't look as sharp, and if you look at the wingtips, there's a bit of movement there as well, because these birds are so quick. So for the smaller birds in particular, but in this case, the first picture of the jay, a 3200th of a second, a 4000th of a second is probably what you need, because they are super quick. And then if we move on to if you look at these pictures of the long-tailed tits, these were taken at 1/3200th of a second. Now the first one, the jay's flapping its wings, and it may fly or it might not. But the second picture, that long-tailed tit is actually taken off. But if you look, because it's taken off and flown at a slight angle, the tail of the long-tailed tit is really sharp focus, but the head isn't. So you do need that bird to fly off parallel. Now sometimes the autofocus system will keep up, but with the small birds, you do need an element of luck to get these sharp pictures. Hi guys, this is a slight veer off a topic, but I've got some really exciting news, and I just wanted to share it with you. I've been wanting to buy or get a camper van for so long, and I've been saving up for years, and I finally bought my camper van. I got it just before Christmas, and I'm going to turn around and actually spin you around so you can have a look. And here it is. It's a Nissan NV200. It's a lovely little camper van, and I'm going to I'll just show you inside. Here we go. So it's got a fridge, obviously a little sink with a gas ring. It's got solar power. It's got a pop-top roof. Let's just spin you back to me now. So it's an absolutely fantastic little camper van. Yeah, as I say, I've been wanting one for ages. It's really exciting, and I'm going to take it on lots of photography adventures. So I'm guessing at some stage you will see the camper van feature in one or more of my videos. So yeah, I'm really pleased with it. It's nice and small, so I can fit it in anywhere. I can fit it under most height barriers, and as I say, it's got a sink, it's got cooking facilities, it's got a fridge, it's got a pop-top roof, so I can sleep in the roof, or if I just spin you around again, it's got one of these sort of rock and roll bed type things that pulls out, so I can sleep down here as well. So yeah, all in all, I'm very, very pleased. It's white, so it's going to get dirty quickly, I'm guessing. But but yeah, I absolutely love it. So that's my news. Now, without any more ado, let's get back to the actual topic of this video. So yeah, I'll catch up with you in a minute. As I say, when it comes to photographing woodland birds taking off, it's really important to pick an area. Now, with a feeding station, you know where the birds are going to be, so it's easier, but it also can make it quite hard, because if you've got multiple birds coming in all over the place in different parts of the feeding station, different perches, then there's no point in going from one to the other, because you miss everything. And often the woodland birds are not around for very long. They come in, take some food, and they're straight out again, so you don't get any chance to react. So if you're on one side of focused on one side of the feeding station on a particular perch, then a bird comes down on the other side and lands on another perch. By the time you swung the camera around, it's probably already picked up some food and disappeared into the background. So my advice is to pick up an area, a particular perch or a particular area, and just be patient and wait for the bird to come in, focus on it, and then get ready for it to take off. And as I say, really fast shutter speed. So for the small birds, at least 3,200th of a second. For the jays and the woodpeckers, you can probably get away with a 2,000th of a second, but I'd rather have a bit more. As you saw with the very first picture of the jay, that was 4,000th of a second, and that's super sharp. Now the light does play quite a big part in this as well, because if it's really dull, it means it's harder to get a very high shutter speed or a very fast shutter speed. Basically, if you set a very fast shutter speed in low lighting conditions, then the ISO is going to go very high and you will get digital noise. Now these days, I don't think it's such a big problem, because there's lots of software available to reduce that noise, and it's better to have digital noise that we can do something about than a blurred picture because the shutter speed was too slow. So ideally, minimum 3,200th of a second for the small birds such as nuthatches and all the long-tailed tits, the great tits, the blue tits. Maybe with the jays and the woodpeckers you can get away with a bit slower, but if you can, still set that high shutter speed. And of course, because we want a fast shutter speed, then I normally have the lens wide open. So at the moment I've got my Nikon 180 to 600, which the maximum aperture is 6.3, but I've also brought with me my 600mm prime, which is an f4, so that gives me just over a stop and a third extra of light, which means my because I can let more light in through the lens, my ISO will drop by a corresponding amount, which is great for when the weather's a bit dull. But look, if you've got a zoom lens and that's what you're using, because we can shoot with higher ISOs, and today's modern cameras are way better, it's not a problem, and then we can do something about that. So I am actually focused on a sort of a post at the back. Anything that flies goes down onto that post. I'm ready, I can focus on it, and then I can get ready to hit the shutter button when it takes off. Now for landing shots, it's even more important, because you don't know where they're going to land. And by the time you swung the camera around to pick up a bird that's landing, probably the autofocus won't be quick enough to pick it up, and you're probably not quick enough to even get it in the frame. So again, my advice is just pick a spot, even though that spot's empty, and at the moment the perch I'm focused on is empty, and just wait for that bird to come in. With this feeding station like this, you know the areas they're going to be coming into, because that's where the food is, so that you can pick one. Don't try and cover them all, because it's impossible. The other camera setting I'm using is a pre-capture. Some camera manufacturers will call it pro capture. Doesn't really matter, it does the same thing. But it's a really brilliant innovation when it comes to wildlife photography. Now, the way it works is this. When I put pre-capture on and I press the shutter button halfway down, or the back button, depending on whether I'm using back button focusing or front button focusing, doesn't matter. The pre-capture is it basically starts, and the camera is taking and recording pictures all the while the shutter button is held halfway down. And for my camera, it takes 30 pictures before I hit the shutter button. So if I'm on a woodland bird, and I know it's going to be taken off really quickly, I've got pre-capture going. I'm half pressing down the shutter button. Then when that bird takes off, I fully depress the shutter button to take a picture normally. Now when I do that, I've already captured 30 pictures before pressing the shutter button down, because those pictures have been buffered in the camera's memory. So that means if I'm too slow to hit the shutter button and that bird is taken off and almost disappeared out of the frame, it doesn't matter, because I've got 30 pictures previous to that, previous to me hitting the shutter button. So likely I've got that shot. It's unbelievably useful, and in fact I've just taken a picture of blue tip on one of the perches. It took off without warning, and that's the trouble. They normally just take off without warning, and I've got a couple of really nice flight shots which I would not have got without using pre-capture. It's absolutely brilliant. Now the beauty of it also is, once you go past 30 pictures, the very first picture it took, it just automatically deletes. So it's not like you've got 50, 60, 100 pictures before you hit the shutter button. You've only got the 30 that the pre-capture is giving me. So I haven't got loads of extra pictures to wade through. So I set mine up for 1 second before I hit the shutter button, and then I think there's the shortest amount of time after I hit the shutter button, because likelihood is the ones after I've hit the shutter button, the bird's already will have been gone. So it's superb. When I'm doing sort of woodland birds taking off, it really, really helps, especially the small ones. I mean, the bigger ones like the jays and the woodpeckers, but maybe not woodpeckers because they're pretty quick as well, but the jays and the woodpeckers you can sometimes get if your reactions are quick enough. And I think the first picture of the jay, that wasn't on pre-capture. I just got that because they're not quite as quick as the small birds, but those small birds are unbelievably fast. So if you've got pre-capture on your camera, absolutely use it. Now, if you haven't got pre-capture, there is another way to do this. It does mean you're going to end up with lots of pictures, but you pick your spot, wait for the bird to land, and then the minute it lands, you hit the shutter button on continuous shutter release. I'd normally go for continuous shutter release high, so it's going bang, 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 and then you hope that that bird takes off and flies away in the right direction before the camera's buffer fills up. And what that basically means is, with some cameras, the internal memory fills up, and once that's filled up, it needs to write those pictures to the memory card, and it takes a little while, and it basically, you can't take any more pictures. So you really have to commit. You have to say, I'm going to press the shutter button down and I'm going to keep taking until that bird takes off or my buffer fills up. Now, it does mean you have loads and loads of pictures to wade through at the end of the day, but you will get flight shots. It's like a do-it-yourself pre-capture, really. So I've done that and it does work. Pre-capture's better. The only thing with my Nikon is I can only do pre-capture in JPEG files, so I am sacrificing the fact that I can't shoot in RAW files, but a lot of cameras now you can do pre-capture in RAW, and I think Nikon will bring that out at some stage. So it's all good. Pre-capture for woodland birds taking off, absolutely fantastic, and you should definitely use it if you've got it. Okay, so quieting down a little bit at the moment, so let's talk about another picture that I've taken previously to this, this photo session. And if you look at this grey heron, these are a lot easier to get pictures of taking off because they're slower. So, and you can predict often when they're going to take off. So same process though, get it in the viewfinder, get it focused and just stay on it. And then when it gets a little bit twitchy and you think it's about to take off, just be ready. And again, I would advise to put the camera on continuous shutter release so you get lots of pictures as that bird takes off. And you don't need such a fast shutter speed either. I shot this at 1/640th of a second, and you can see the head's sharp and the body's sharp. If you get a bit of blur in the wingtips, I don't mind that. It just adds a bit of energy to the picture. So woodland for a grey heron or big birds like this, you don't need pre-capture because you can anticipate when they're going to take off and they're not as quick. And then as it takes off, you're just going to pan the camera to get as many shots as you can before it sort of changes direction. And with these birds, normally the autofocus will follow. So even if it doesn't take off parallel to the lens, it goes off at an angle, your autofocus system should keep up. So they're way, way easier. So the woodland birds, the small birds, are definitely the hardest. The bigger birds are a lot easier to do. So that would be probably a good place to start. Find herons and water birds. And if you look at this next series of pictures, This was a little egret, and it was jumping around, taking off sometimes, and again, same process. It was a bit quicker, so I actually shot, because there was lots of light, at 1/2000th of a second, and that freezes all the motion. And then again, you just make sure your panning technique's good. So once it's on the move, you sort of pan with the subject. And also, don't crop in too tight, because if you've cropped in tight on that bird when it's stationary, when those wings come out, you're going to start clipping the wings. So you have to leave a bit of room around the animal so that when it does start to move, you've got plenty of empty space to fill up with those big wings as they move around. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Photographing birds taking off, especially the small woodland birds, it is a challenging subject, but it's really good fun, especially when you sort of nail that picture. So I hope this gives you, the inspiration to go out and have a crack at this type of photography. Obviously, if you start with the bigger birds, it's easier, and then maybe do the smaller, faster birds as you get more practice. Yeah, I hope this is a useful video for you guys. So if you have enjoyed it, as usual, if you can give it a thumbs up, a like, that really helps my channel. If you've got any comments about bird photography in general, or this fast-paced action bird photography, let me know in the comments section below. What sort of success rate are you getting? Do you use pre-capture, and how useful are you finding that? And then last but not least, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, if you can consider subscribing, that would be great. I do this type of content. I do some reviews of kit, sometimes only stuff that I've bought myself. I do sort of just out in the field, wandering around and taking lots of photographs of great wildlife. And then I also do a few on the behaviour, natural history and biology of different animals as well, because I think the more you know about the animal you're photographing, the better your photographs are going to be. So yeah, if you could either like this video, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and comment, that would be great. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll speak to you on my next video. So bye for now.